Let me ask you something personal. When was the last time you woke up in the morning and felt genuinely grateful just to breathe easily, to stand up without pain, to remember exactly where you put your keys? Most of us rush past those moments without a second thought. But after spending more than 25 years working with older adults across hospitals and private practice, I can tell you with complete certainty that those quiet, ordinary moments are not small things. They are everything. And today I want to talk to you about something that could genuinely change the way you see your own body and your own future. But before we get into that, I want to ask you something. We are just a few subscribers away from hitting 1,000 on this channel, and every single one of you watching right now can help us get there. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take just 2 seconds, hit that subscribe button below, and ring the bell so you never miss a video. It costs you nothing, and it means the world to us. Now, let's get into something that I believe every person over 60 needs to hear. There is a version of aging that most people never see because it doesn't make headlines. It doesn't show up in pharmaceutical advertisements or hospital brochures. It's the version where someone walks into their 80s still sharp, still independent, still genuinely enjoying their life. And in my career, I have met those people. I've sat across from them in examination rooms. I've reviewed their blood work, and I have asked them often and directly what they believe kept them well. The answers were never what I expected. They weren't talking about expensive supplements or extreme diets or obsessive fitness routines. They were talking about patterns, simple, consistent, almost boring patterns that their bodies had responded to over decades. Today I'm going to walk you through 5 biological signs that suggest your body may already be on track for a remarkably long life. And more importantly, what you can do right now to protect and strengthen each one of them. The first sign is one that I want you to take seriously, because most people completely underestimate its importance. It has to do with how well your heart has held up over the years. If you are in your 60s or 70s, and you have never been told you have coronary artery disease, never needed a stent, never been put on blood pressure medication for a serious elevation, that is not something to take for granted. That is your cardiovascular system telling you that it has managed decades of pressure, stress, rich meals, sleepless nights, emotional pain, and physical exertion. And it has still come out functioning the way it should. The heart is not just a muscle. It is the coordinator of your entire internal world. When it beats well, oxygen reaches your brain efficiently. Your kidneys filter properly, your limbs stay warm and responsive. When it starts to struggle, everything downstream starts to suffer, and it rarely announces itself until real damage has already been done. What I've noticed in patients who reach their late 80s with a clean cardiovascular record is that they tend to share one particular quality that doesn't get enough attention. They manage their emotional lives with unusual care. Not that they never experience stress or loss. Everyone does. But they had a way of releasing it rather than storing it. One of my oldest patients, a retired school teacher I'll call Dorothy, came to see me at 83 for a routine check. Her resting heart rate was 58. Her blood pressure was exactly where it should be. Her arteries, based on imaging, looked like they belonged to someone in their mid-50s. I asked her what she had done differently from other people her age. She looked at me and said very simply, "I never carried a grudge past bedtime." Now, that sounds like folk wisdom, but the physiology behind it is completely real. Chronic resentment and unresolved anger keep cortisol elevated for extended periods. And cortisol, when it stays high day after day, inflames the inner lining of your blood vessels. It makes them stiff. It accelerates plaque formation. It raises pressure in ways that medication struggles to fully reverse. Dorothy's emotional practice wasn't just good for her peace of mind. It was actively protecting her arteries. If your heart is still in good shape, honor that. Keep moving, even gently. Keep eating in ways that support clean circulation. And pay close attention to how you handle the stress that life will inevitably keep bringing you, because that management matters more than most people ever realize. The second sign your body may be built for the long run is something that shows up in your blood work more than anywhere else, and it has everything to do with how your body handles sugar and energy. Metabolic health, specifically the absence of type 2 diabetes or severe insulin resistance, is one of the strongest predictors of how gracefully a person ages. And here is what most people do not understand about this disease. It does not begin on the day of diagnosis. It begins quietly, sometimes 10 or 15 years earlier, when cells gradually lose their sensitivity to insulin, and the body starts compensating by producing more and more of it. By the time a doctor delivers the diagnosis, significant vascular and neurological damage has often already occurred. That is why people who remain metabolically healthy into their later years tend to age so differently from those who don't. Their blood vessels stay cleaner, their inflammation stays lower, their brains retain sharper function for longer, their energy levels remain more consistent throughout the day. It is not a coincidence. It is cause and effect playing out across decades. I had a patient named George who was 86 when I first met him. He'd grown up on a small farm in rural Pennsylvania, and he had never entirely lost those habits even after moving to the city. He ate vegetables with every meal, not because anyone told him to, but because that was simply how he had always eaten. He walked after dinner most evenings. He slept by 10 cheese most nights. He hadn't had a sugary drink in 40 years, not out of discipline exactly, just because he'd never developed the taste for them. His blood sugar was perfect. His insulin sensitivity was remarkable for his age. And when I asked him whether he had ever tried to be healthy, he laughed and said, "I just never tried to be unhealthy." That answer has stayed with me ever since. Metabolic health is not always about radical intervention. Sometimes it is simply the result of not doing the things that disrupt the body's natural balance, not overloading it with refined carbohydrates, not skipping sleep night after night, not spending the entire day sedentary. If your metabolism is still running cleanly, protect it with the same quiet consistency that probably got you here. Now, I want to pause for just a moment and say, if you are finding value in this conversation, please share it with someone you care about, a parent, a sibling, a friend who is thinking about their health and their future. You never know whose life a single video might shift. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it right now. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers, and your support is what keeps this channel going. Now, let's keep moving, because the third sign is one that many people have experienced in small ways without realizing how significant it actually is. The third biological indicator of long-term resilience is the health of your circulatory system, specifically your brain's blood supply. If you've never had a stroke, never had what doctors call a transient ischemic attack, and never experienced the sudden vision changes, or one-sided weakness or speech confusion that can signal a vascular event in the brain that matters enormously. The brain is the most metabolically demanding organ in your body. It consumes roughly 20% of all the oxygen your heart pumps, despite being only about 2% of your total body weight. That means it is completely dependent on an uninterrupted, clean, well-pressurized blood supply. When that supply is disrupted, even briefly, the damage can be immediate and permanent. But when it flows well year after year, the brain stays nourished, cognition stays sharp, memory stays intact, and the person stays themselves, which is ultimately what most of us fear losing most. What protects cerebrovascular health is deeply connected to everything else we've already discussed. Blood pressure management is the most critical factor. Hypertension quietly damages the delicate inner walls of cerebral blood vessels over years, making them either prone to blockage or prone to rupture. But beyond blood pressure, there is something else I have observed consistently in people who never experience a stroke. They tend to be excellent sleepers, not perfect sleepers. None of us are. But they prioritize rest. They give their brains the nightly repair window that the glymphatic system, which is essentially the brain's overnight cleaning crew, requires to flush out the waste products of daily neural activity. When sleep is chronically short or disrupted, that cleanup doesn't happen fully. Inflammation builds, vessels stiffened, and the risk of a cerebrovascular event rises in ways that are only now being fully understood by modern research. If your brain circulation is held strong, treat sleep as the non-negotiable medicine that it truly is. The fourth sign is one that I approach with great care because it touches something deeply personal for most people. It has to do with cancer. If you have reached your 70s or 80s without a cancer diagnosis, or without a recurrence following earlier treatment, your immune system has been performing one of the most complex and demanding jobs in all of human biology. Every single day, abnormal cells appear in the body. This is not unusual. This is not alarming. It is simply how cellular replication works over a lifetime. What separates a body that develops cancer from one that doesn't is almost always whether the immune system detected those abnormal cells quickly enough and eliminated them before they could establish themselves. That immune surveillance is one of the most extraordinary things the human body does, and it does it silently, continuously, without any awareness on your part. What supports that surveillance? More than I could fully cover in one video, but the key factors are consistent across virtually every major study on cancer prevention. Chronic inflammation is the environment in which cancer most readily takes hold, and chronic inflammation is driven by the same things we keep returning to throughout this conversation: poor sleep, processed foods, sedentary lifestyle, unmanaged psychological stress. The patients I've known who reached advanced stage cancer-free were not people who never experienced hard times. They were people whose bodies did not stay in a state of prolonged internal alarm. They found ways to rest. They found ways to move. They found ways to feel connected to other people. And that connection, it turns out, is deeply immunological. Loneliness and social isolation suppress immune function in measurable, documented ways. Belonging and genuine human connection enhance it. If you are cancer-free at this stage of life, please do not stop being vigilant. Continue your screenings. Stay attuned to changes in your body, but also recognize what your immune system has already accomplished on your behalf. It deserves your ongoing respect and support. And now, the fifth sign, the one that I genuinely believe is the most overlooked conversation in all of aging medicine: your lungs. If you can climb a flight of stairs without stopping to catch your breath, if you can walk at a reasonable pace and hold a conversation at the same time, if you've never been diagnosed with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or emphysema or chronic bronchitis, your respiratory system is giving you a gift that you absolutely cannot afford to ignore. Here is why this matters so profoundly. Oxygen is not optional. Every repair process that happens in your body, every immune response, every cognitive function, every moment of cellular regeneration requires an adequate oxygen supply. When the lungs begin to lose capacity, which they do gradually and silently in most people, the entire body begins to operate under a kind of low-level oxygen death. Healing slows, fatigue deepens, cognitive decline accelerates. The heart works harder to compensate, and the person begins to feel, sometimes without being able to name it, like they are running on less than a full tank. But the people I have known who kept their lungs strong well into their 90s shared a habit that was almost universal. They kept moving outdoors, not in gyms necessarily, not in formal exercise programs, but outside in fresh air at a pace that required real effort from their respiratory system. The lungs, like any tissue in the body, respond to demand. When you ask them to work, when you breathe deeply and consistently, they maintain their elasticity. When you don't, they stiffen. A retired fisherman I'll call Arthur was 91 when his pulmonary function test genuinely surprised the technician who administered it. She came to find me afterward and said, "You need to look at these results." His lung capacity and his forced expiratory volume both tested significantly above average for someone 30 years younger. Arthur had never exercised formally in his life, but he had spent every morning of his adult life outdoors. He breathed deeply by necessity because the work he'd done had demanded it, and his lungs had rewarded that demand with extraordinary longevity. You can begin doing the same thing right now, regardless of your age. Breathe intentionally. Spend time outside. Sing, which genuinely strengthens the respiratory muscles, and protect the air in your immediate environment, because what enters your lungs every day is quietly shaping how long and how well you live. So, let me bring all of this together for you now, because I think there is something important that connects every one of these 5 signs. A healthy heart, stable metabolism, clean circulation, a vigilant immune system, and strong lungs are not 5 separate achievements. They are 5 expressions of the same underlying truth. The body is an integrated system, and it responds over years and decades to the way you treat it. The small choices accumulate. The consistent habits compound. The quiet daily decisions about what you eat, how you move, how you sleep, how you handle emotional pain, how you stay connected to other people. They are not minor details. They are the actual architecture of longevity. The patients I've known who lived the longest were not the ones who tried the hardest in some intense, dramatic way. They were the ones who were the most consistent in the most ordinary ways. They ate real food most of the time. They moved their bodies every day in some form. They slept without apology. They stayed curious. They stayed useful to other people. They adapted when life changed instead of fighting the change itself. And they never lost the sense that the next chapter of their life still had something worth showing up for. That orientation toward life, that openness to what comes next, I am convinced it is not just psychological. It is biological. It keeps the nervous system regulated. It keeps inflammation lower. It keeps the immune system engaged. It keeps people alive in the fullest sense of that word. If you are watching this today and these 5 signs resonate with your own experience, I want you to take a moment and genuinely acknowledge what your body has done for you, the decades of demands you placed on it, the stress it absorbed, the illnesses it fought off, the mornings it got you upright and moving again when you perhaps weren't sure it would. Your body has been working on your behalf every single hour of your life. And if it is still strong, still resilient, still largely free of these 5 conditions, that is not something to be casual about. That is something to honor, to protect, and to build on every single day you are given. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. It genuinely means a great deal to me that you spent this time here. Please leave a comment below and tell me one thing from today that you are going to carry forward because your words matter to this community more than you know. If this video added something to your day, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you are not subscribed yet, we are working toward 1,000 subscribers, and every single one counts. Hit that button, ring the bell, and I will see you in the next.